ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Namaskar my dear friends, this is 49th video on talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi. This video starts with talk number 629. 17th February 1939. Talk number 629. This is Shivratri day. Sri Bhagwan was beaming with grace in the evening. A sadhaka raised the following question. Devotee, inquiry into the self seems to take one into the subtle body, Ati Vahika Sriram or Purya Satkam or Jivatma. Am I right? Maharshi replies, they are different names for the same state, but they are used according to the different points of view. After some time, Purya Satkam, the eightfold subtle body, will disappear and there will be the Eka, one only. Vritti Jnana alone can destroy Ajnana, ignorance. Absolute Jnana is not inimical to Ajnana. There are two kinds of vrittis, modes of mind. Number one, Visaya vritti, objective, and two, Atma vritti, subjective. The first must give place to the second. That is the aim of Abhyasa, practice, which takes one first to the Purya Shatka and then to the one self. Talk 630. In the course of conversation, a devotee said in passing, Shiv Prakasam Pillai, who is such a good man, such an ardent devotee and a long-standing disciple, has written a poem saying that Sri Bhagwan's instructions could not be carried out by him effectively in practice. What can be the lot of others then? Maharshi Sri Acharya also says similar things when he composes songs in praise of any deity. How else can they praise God? Saying this, Sri Bhagwan smiled. Talk 631. The sadhaka repeated his question in a different way. Devotee, the inquiry into the self seems to lead to Ativahika, the Purya Satka or the Jivatma. Is it right? Maharshi, yes, it is called Sarira, body or abode, city or individual, Puri or Jiva, according to the outlook. They are the same. Virti Jnanam is usually associated with objective phenomena. When these cease, there remains the Atma Virti or the subjective Virti, that is the same as Jnanam. Without it, Jnanam will not cease. The Purya Satka also will not be found associated with anything outside, and the self will shine forth uniform and harmonious. 18th February 1939, talk number 632. Mr. Satyanarayana Rao, a teacher in Vellore Mahanta School, is a well-known devotee of Sri Maharshi. He has been ailing from a cancer of the gullet and the doctors have no hopes for him. He has been given a room in the ashram and the Sarvadhikari is very kind to him. It is now about 2 months and the patient is very weak. At about 9 a.m. Sri Bhagwan was reading the Tapalj. The brother of the patient appeared in the hall with an anxious look to ask Sri Bhagwan about the patient who was gasping. The Sarva Adhikari also came to the hall on behalf of the sufferer. Sri Bhagwan continued to read the Tapals. In a few minutes, another devotee also came there for the same purpose. Sri Bhagwan asked, did you call the doctor? Devotee, yes, but he is too busy in the hospital. Maharshi, what can I do? After a short time, they will be pleased if I go there. Soon, soon Bhagwan left the hall and went to the patient's side, massaged him gently and placed his hand on the heart and the other on his head. The patient, whose tongue was protruding, mouth open, and eyes fixed, showed signs of relief, and in about 20 minutes gently murmured, O help of the helpless, how I have troubled thee! What return can I make for this kindness? The people felt relieved. Sri Bhagwan returned to the hall. Someone offered soap and water to Sri Bhagwan to wash his hands, but he declined them and rubbed his hands over his body. However, the patient passed away a few days later. A well-known devotee remarked, Sri Bhagwan appears so unconcerned under all circumstances, but he is all along so loving and gracious. 23rd February 1939. Talk number 633. A visitor from Dindigul said, I suffer in both mind and body. From the day of my birth, I have never had happiness. My mother too suffered from the time she conceived me. I hear, why do I suffer thus? I have not sinned in this life. Is all this due to the sins of past lives? Maharshi, if there should be unrelieved suffering all the time, who would seek happiness? That is, if suffering be the natural state, how can the desire to be happy arise at all? However, the desire does arise. So to be happy is natural, all else is unnatural. Suffering is not desired only because it comes and goes. The questioner repeated his complaint. Mercy, you say the mind and body suffer. But do they ask the questions? Who is the questioner? Is it not the one that is beyond both mind and body? You say the body suffers in this life. The cause of this is the previous life. Its cause is the one before it, and so on. So, like the case of the seed and the sprout, there is no end to the causal series. It has to be said that all the lives have their first cause in ignorance. That same ignorance is present even now, framing this question that ignorance must be removed by jnanam. Why and to whom did this suffering come? If you question thus, you will find that the I is separate from the mind and body, that the self is the only eternal being, and that it is eternal bliss, that is jnanam. Why should there be suffering now? Devotee, why should there be suffering now? Maharshi, if there were no suffering, how could the desire to be happy arise? If that desire did not arise, how would the quest of the self be successful? Devotee, then is all suffering good? Maharshi, quite so. What is happiness? Is it a healthy and handsome body, timely meals and the like? Even an emperor has troubles without and though he may be healthy. So all suffering is due to the false notion I am the body. Getting rid of it is jnanam. Talk 634. An Andhra gentleman retired from government service asked, I have been doing Omkara Upasana for long. In the left ear, I am always hearing a sound. It is like the piping of a Nadaswaram pipe. Even now I hear it. Some luminous visions are also seen. I do not know what I should do. Maharshi, there must be one to hear sounds or see visions. That one is the I. If you seek it asking who am I, the subject and objects would coalesce. After that, there is no quest. Till then, thought will arise, things will appear and disappear. You ask yourself what has happened and what will happen. If the subject be known, then the objects will merge in the subject. If without that knowledge one applies the mind to objects, because these objects appear and disappear, and one does not know that one's true nature is that which remains over as the self. One vanishing of objects fear arises. That is, the mind being bound to objects, there is suffering when the objects are absent, but they are transient and the self is eternal. If the eternal self be known, subject and object merge into one, and the one without a second will shine. Devotee, is there the merger of the Omkara? Maharshi, Om is the eternal truth, that which remains over after the disappearance of objects is Om. It does not merge in anything. It is the state of which it is said, where one sees none other, hear none other, knows none other, that is perfection. Yatra nanyat pashyati, nanyat srunoti, nanyat vijayanti sa bhuma. All the upasanas are a way to winning it. One must not get stuck in the upasanas but must query who am I and find the self. Devotee, I have no pleasure in the house. There remains nothing for me to do in the family. I have finished doing what I had to do. Now there are grandsons and granddaughters. May I remain in the house or should I leave it and go away? Maharshi, you should stay just where you are now. But where are you now? Are you in the house or is the house in you? Is there any house apart from you? If you get fixed in your own place, you will see all things have merged into you, and there will be no cause for such questions as these. Devotee, yes, then it seems as if I may remain at home. Mercy, you must remain in your real state. Talk number 635. An Andhra gentleman of Housepit has returned from pilgrimage to Kailash, Amarnath, etc. He described how fine those places are and how difficult the journey was. He finally asked for something to remind him of Maharshi, meaning some instruction. Maharshi, you have been to Kailash, etc. Have you been to Muktinath? Devotee, no, it was too difficult a journey for me. I have, however, been in Nepal. Have you been to those places? Maharshi, no, no, I mentioned Muktinath casually. Then Sri Bhagwan remarked to go to Kailash and return is just a new birth, for there the body idea drops off. Talk 636. Mrs. Kelly Hack asked if the waking and the dream states might be imagined to be excursions from the natural state of the self. Maharshi, there must be a place for excursions. The place must also lie outside oneself. It is not possible in the true nature of the self. Devotee, but I meant that it might be imagined to be so. Mercy, one might as well imagine the true nature of the self. Devotee, the illustration of the screen is very beautiful. Mercy, the cinema screen is not sentient and so requires a seer, whereas the screen of the self includes the seer and the scene, rather, it is full of light. The pictures of the cinema show cannot be seen without the help of darkness, for you cannot have a show in broad daylight. Similarly, the mind thinks thoughts and sees objects owing to an underlying ignorance, avidya. The self is pure knowledge, pure light, where there is no duality. Duality implies ignorance. The knowledge of the self is beyond a relative knowledge and ignorance. The light of the self is beyond the ordinary light and darkness. The self is all alone. Talk number 637. There was some question about progress. Sri Bhagwan said that progress is for the mind and not for the self. The self is ever perfect. 2nd March 1939, talk number 638. For the last few days, a rule is in force by which the visitors are not allowed to enter the hall between 12 noon and 2:30 p.m. A few Muslim visitors came to the ashram in the interval today. The attendant promptly told them that they should not disturb Sri Bhagwan's rest at this hour. Sri Bhagwan quietly got down from the sofa and came out of the hall. He sat on the stone pavement adjoining the wall and asked the visitors also to sit close to him. He went on reading a newspaper and also laid himself on the stone. He was finally requested to go in. Talk 639. While speaking to Mr. K.L. Sharma of Pudukkottai, Sri Bhagwan said, leaving out what is intimate and immediate, why should one seek the rest? The scriptures say that thou art. In this statement, thou is directly experienced, but leaving it out, they go on seeking that. Devotee, in order to find the oneness of that and of thou, Maharshi, thou is the inner self immanent in all. In order to find the same, he leaves himself out and sees the world objectively. What is the world? What is immanent in it? It is that all such ideas arise only on forgetting one's own self. I never bothered myself with such matters. Only after a time it occurred to me that man had investigated such matters. 3rd March 1939, talk number 640. At about 4 p.m., Sri Bhagwan, who was writing something intently, turned his eyes slowly towards the window to the north. He closed the fountain pen with the cap and put it in its case. He closed the notebook and put it aside. He removed the spectacles, folded them in the case and left them aside. He leaned back a little, looked up overhead, turned his face this way and that, and looked here and there. He passed his hand over his face and looked contemplative. Then he turned to someone in the hall and said softly, Maharshi, the pair of sparrows just came here and complained to me that their nest had been removed. I looked up and found their nest missing. Then he called for the attendant, Madhva Swami, and asked, Madhva, did anyone remove the sparrow's nest? The attendant, who walked in leisurely, answered with an air of unconcern, I removed the nest as often as they were built. I removed the last one this very afternoon. Mercy, that's it. That's why the sparrow complained. The poor little ones, how they take the pieces of straw and shreds in their tiny beaks and struggle to build their nest. Attend, but why should they build here over our heads? Maharshi, well, let us see who succeeds in the end. After a short time, Sri Bhagwan went out. Talk 641. Explaining the opening stanza of the Sadvidya, Sri Bhagwan observed, the world is always apparent to everyone. All must know I and this world exist. On enquiry, do these always exist, and if indeed real, they must remain even unrelated to time, space, and differentiation. Are they so? It is evident that only in the waking and dream states these are perceived, but not in the deep sleep. Therefore, I and the world appear sometimes and disappear also. They are created, have their being, and later vanish. Whence do they arise? Wherein do they remain? Where do they go on vanishing from view? Can such phenomena be admitted to be real? Furthermore, I and the world, objects of creation, sustenance, and destruction, are perceived in the waking and dream states only and not in deep sleep. How does deep sleep differ from the other two states? In sleep there are no thoughts, whereas in the other two states there are. There the thoughts must be the origin of the I and the world. Now, what about thoughts? They cannot be natural, otherwise, they cannot appear at one moment and disappear at another. Where from do they arise? Their source, ever present and not subject to variations, must be admitted to be. It must be the eternal state as said in the Upadesa mantra, that from which all beings come forth, that in which they remain, and that too in which they resolve. This stanza is not in praise or adoration but only an expression of the reality. Talk number 642. Mr. K. L. Sharma asked, Savasvarpanus dhanam bhakti ritya bhidhiyate. Again, savat matatvan sadhanam bhakti tyapre log joguhu. What is the difference between the two? Maharshi. The former is vichara, who am I, koham. It represents jnana. The latter is dhyana, whence am I, kutoham. This admits a jivatma which seeks the Paramatma. Talk number 643. An elderly learned Andhra asked, are the two methods karma marga and jnana marga separate and independent of each other, or is the karma marga only a preliminary which after successful practice should be followed by jnana marga for the consummation of the aim? The karma advocates non-attachment to action and yet an active life, whereas the jnana means renunciation. What is the true meaning of renunciation? Subjugation of lust, passion, greed, etc. is common to all and forms the essential preliminary step for any course. Does not freedom from passion indicate renunciation, or is renunciation different, meaning cessation of active life? These questions are troubling me and I beg lights to be thrown on those doubts. Bhagwan smiled and said, you have said all. Your question contains the answers also. Freedom from passion is the essential requisite. When that is accomplished, all else is accomplished. Devotee Sri Sankara emphasizes the Jnana Marga and renunciation as preliminary to it. But there are clearly two methods. The Vividha mentioned in the Gita, they are karma and jnana. Lokesmin Dividha Nishtha. Maharshi Sri Acharya has commented on the Gita and on that passage also. Devotee, the Gita seems to emphasize karma, for Arjuna is persuaded to fight. Sri Krishna himself set the example by an active life of great exploits. Mercy, the Gita starts saying that you are not the body, that you are not there for the karta. Devotee, what is the significance? Maharshi, that one should act without thinking that oneself is the actor. The actions go on despite his egolessness. The person has come into manifestation for a certain purpose. That purpose will be accomplished whether he considers himself the actor or not. Devotee, what is karma yoga? Is it non-attachment to karma or its fruit? Maharshi, karma yoga is that yoga in which the person does not arrogate to himself the function of being the actor. The actions go on automatically. Devotee, is it the non-attachment to the fruits of actions? Maharshi, the question arises only if there is the actor. It is being all along said that you should not consider yourself the actor. Devotee. So karma yoga is kartritva buddhi rahita karma. Action without the sense of doership. Maharshi, yes, quite so. Devotee, the Gita teaches active life from beginning to end. Maharshi, yes, the actorless action. Devotee, is it then necessary to leave the home and lead a life of renunciation? Maharshi, is the home in you or are you in the home? Devotee, it is in my mind, Maharshi. Then what becomes of you when you leave the physical environment? Devotee, now I see. Renunciation is only action without the sense of being the karta. Is there not action for a Jivan Mukta? Maharshi, who raises the question, is he a Jivan Mukta or another? Devotee, not a Jivan Mukta. Maharshi, let the question be raised after Jivan Mukti is gained if it is found necessary. Mukti is admitted Mukti is admitted to be freedom from the mental activities also. Can a mukta think of action? Devotee, even if he gives up the action, then action will not leave him. Is it not so? Maharshi, with what is he identified in order that this question might apply? Devotee, yes, I see. All right, my doubts are now cleared. Talk number 644. A district official, a Muslim, puts the question, what is the necessity for reincarnation? Maharshi, let us first see if there is incarnation before we speak of reincarnation. Devotee, how? Are you now incarnated that you speak of reincarnation? Devotee, yes, certainly. An amoeba developed into higher organisms until the human being has been evolved. This is now the perfection in development. Why should there be further reincarnation? Mercy, who is to set limits to this theory of evolution? Devotee, physically it is perfect, but for the soul, further development may be required, which will happen after the death of the man. Mercy, who is the man? Is he the body or the soul? Devotee, both put together. Mercy, do you not exist in the absence of the body? Devotee, how do you mean? It is impossible. Mercy, what was your state in deep sleep? Devotee, sleep is temporary death. I was unconscious and therefore I cannot say what the state was. Mercy, but you existed in sleep, did you not? Devotee, in sleep, the soul leaves the body and goes out somewhere. Then it returns to the body before waking. It is therefore temporary death. Maharshi, a man who is dead never returns to say that he died, whereas the man who had slept says that he slept. Devotee, because this is temporary death. Mercy, if death is temporary and life is temporary, what is it that is real? Devotee, what is meant by the question? Mercy, if life and death be temporary, there must be something which is not temporary. Reality is that which is not temporary. Devotee, there is nothing real. Everything is temporary. Everything is Maya. Mercy, on what does Maya appear? Devotee, now I see you. It is all Maya. Mercy, if everything is Maya, how does any question arise? Devotee, why should there be reincarnation? Mercy, for whom? Devotee, for the perfect human being. Mercy, if you are perfect, why do you fear to be reborn? It indicates imperfection. Devotee, not that I fear, but you say that I must be reborn. Mercy, who says it? You are asking the question. Devotee, what I mean is this. You are a perfect being. I am a sinner. You tell me that I, being a sinner, must be reborn in order to perfect myself. Mercy, no, I do not say so. On the other hand, I say that you have no birth and therefore no death. Devotee, do you mean to say that I was not born? Mercy, yes, you are now thinking that you are the body and therefore confuse yourself with its birth and death. But you are not the body and you have no birth and death. Devotee, do you not uphold the theory of rebirth? Maharshi, no. On the other hand, I want to remove your confusion that you will be reborn. It is you who think that you will be reborn. See for whom this question arises. Unless the questioner is found, the questions can never be set at rest. Devotee, this is no answer to my question. Maharshi, on the other hand, this is the answer to elucidate the point and all other doubts as well. Devotee, this will not satisfy all others. Mercy, leave others alone. If you take care of yourself, others can take care of themselves. Silence followed. He left in a few minutes, apparently dissatisfied with the discourse. Sri Bhagwan said after a few minutes, this will work in him. The discourse will have its effect. He does not admit any reality. Well, who is it that has determined everything to be unreal? Otherwise, the determination also becomes unreal. The theory of evolution is enlarged upon by the person in this state. Where is it, if not in his mind? To say that the soul must be perfected after death, the soul must be admitted to exist. Therefore, the body is not the person, it is the soul. To explain evolution, Sri Bhagwan continued. One sees an edifice in his dream. It rises up all of a sudden. Then he begins to think how it should have been already built brick by so many laborers during such a long time. Yet he does not see the builders working. So also with the theory of evolution, because he finds himself a man, he thinks that he has developed to that stage from the primal state of the amoeba. Another devotee, it is an illustration of the saying that he sees the universe full of cause and effect. Visram Pashyati Karya Karnetaya. Maharshi, yes, the man always traces an effect to a cause. There must be a cause for the cause. The argument becomes interminable. Relating the effect to a cause makes the man think. He is finally driven to consider who he is himself. Where, when he knows the self, there is perfect peace. It is for that consummation that man is evolved. Later in the evening, another devotee said to Sri Bhagwan that the Muslim official continued to speak of the same topic to the municipal commissioner. Then Sri Bhagwan said, he says that body and soul together form the man. But I ask, what is the state of the man in deep sleep? The body is not aware, whereas the man is there all along. Devotee, but he says that sleep is temporary death. Maharshi, yes, so he says, but he qualifies the word death by the word temporary so that the man return to the body. How does he find the body to re-enter it? Moreover, he is sure to return. That means that he must exist to return to the body or to claim the body for himself. The scriptures, however, say that the prana protects the body in sleep. For when the body lies on the floor, a wolf or a tiger may feed on it. The animal sniffs and feels that there is life within, and therefore does not feed on it as on a corpse. That again shows that there is someone in the body to protect it in deep sleep. Journal remarks by Sri Bhagwan. Or knowledge is meant only to lead the person to the realization of the self. The scriptures or religions are well known to be for that purpose. What do they all mean? Leave alone what they say of the past or of the future, for it is only speculative. But the present existence is within the experience of all. Realize the pure being, there is an end to all discourses and disputes. But the intellect of man does not easily take to this course. It is only rarely that a man becomes introverted. The intellect delights in investigating the past and the future, but does not look to the present because it must lose itself if it sank within in search of the self. But the other investigation gives it not only a lease of life but also food for growth. Mercy, yes, quite so. Why is intellect developed? It has a purpose. The purpose is that it should show the way to realize the self. It must be put to that use. 12th March 1939, talk number 645. A man of about 30 of good appearance came to the hall with a few companions. The man abruptly began to say, I cannot help anyone to reach the goal. How can I be pointed out? Mercy, it must be found within. It is known it is not an object so that it may be shown by one to another. Devotee, when the instruction to find the I is given, the instruction must be made complete by showing what it is. Mercy, the instruction here amounts to direction only. It depends on the seeker to use the direction. Devotee, the seeker is ignorant and seeks instruction. Mercy, he is therefore guided to find the truth. Devotee, but it is not enough. The I must be pointed out specifically. The man assumed an aggressive attitude and did not listen. Sri Bhagwan tried to explain, but he would not allow Sri Bhagwan to do so. Finally, Sri Bhagwan said, this is not the attitude of the seeker. When someone teaches humility to the seeker, he will reach the way and not till then. The chanting of the Vedas began. The conversation was casually referred to by a devotee present. Sri Bhagwan again said, the seeker must listen and try to understand. If on the other hand he wants to prove me, let him do so by all means, I do not argue. The man again began, my attitude was not properly understood. I want to know the I, it must be pointed out to me. But he displayed considerable malice. The others did not like it and so tried to bring him round. He became worse. Sri Bhagwan finally said, "Go back the way you came. Do it externally or internally as it suits you." The man grew excited and others also were equally excited. He was finally led out of the hall and sent away. Later it was learned that the man was an adherent of yoga and that he used to abuse all other methods. He used to vilify jnana and the jnanis. At night after supper, Sri Bhagwan spoke of one Govinda Yogi, a Malayali Brahmin Pandit of some repute. He used to extol yoga and vilify the other methods. He always cited the Gita, the Upanishads, etc. to support his statements. Others, for example, Sri Narayana Guru, used to refute him on the same ground. Later, Sri Bhagwan spoke appreciating the amiability of Amritanatha. He is a great tapasvi who had made considerable japa. He had fed the poor on many occasions in many places. He could easily gain the goodwill of others, including great men like Sir P. Ramanathan and Pandit Malviya. 13th March 1939, talk number 646. Sri Bhagwan referred to the following passage of Gandhiji in the Harijan of the 11th instant. How mysterious are the ways of God! This journey to Rajkot is a wonder even to me. Why am I going? Whether I am going? Whither am I going? What for? I have thought nothing about these things. And if God guides me, what should I think? Why should I think? Even thought may be an obstacle in the way of His guidance. The fact is, it takes no effort to stop thinking. The thoughts do not come. Indeed, there is no vacuum. But I mean to say that there is no thought about the mission. Sri Bhagwan remarked how true the words were and emphasized each statement in the extract. Then he cited Thayumanawar in support of the state which is free from thoughts. Although I had often heard that all the Shrutis declare the state of stillness to be one of bliss and bliss, all bliss, and yet I continued to be ignorant. Again, I did not follow the advice of my Lord, the silent Master, because of my folly. I wandered in the forest of illusion. Alas, it was my fate. Bliss will reveal itself to if one is still. Why then is this illusory yoga practice? Can it, that is bliss, be revealed by directing the intellect in a particular way? Do not say so. You who are given to the practice and are therefore an innocent babe. The eternal being is that state where you have disappeared. Are you not in it too? You who cannot speak of it, do not be perplexed. Although you do not manifest, yet you are not lost, for you are eternal and also still. Do not be in pain, here is bliss, come out. 15th March 1939, talk number 647. Devotee, is not what Gandhiji describes the state in which thoughts themselves become foreign? Mercy, yes, it is only after the rise of the I thought that all other thoughts arise. The world is seen after you have felt I am. The I thought and all other thoughts had vanished for him. Devotee, then the body sense must be absent in that state. Maharshi, The body sense also is a thought, whereas he describes the state in which thoughts do not come. Devotee, he also says it takes no effort to stop thinking. Mercy, of course, no effort is necessary to stop thoughts, whereas one is necessary for bringing about thoughts. Devotee, we are trying to stop thoughts. Gandhiji also says that thought is an obstacle to God's guidance, so it is the natural state. Though natural, yet how difficult to realize. They say that sadhanas are necessary and also that they are obstacles. We get confused. Maharshi, sadhanas are needed so long as one has not realized it. They are for putting an end to obstacles. Finally, there comes a stage when a person feels helpless, notwithstanding the sadhanas. He is unable to pursue the much cherished sadhana also. It is then that God's power is realized, the self reveals itself. Devotee, if the state is natural, why does it not overcome the unnatural phases and assert itself over the rest? Mercy, is there anything beside that? Does anyone see anything beside the self? One is always aware of the self, so it is always itself. Devotee, it is sad because it shines forth, it is directly perceived. I understand from it that it becomes pratyaksha, directly perceived, because it is pradipta, shining. Since it is not realized by us, I take it to be not shining. It is only Pardipa, shining, and hence admits of obstacles and goes under them. If the Atma becomes Parkarshana Deepa, very shining, it will shine over the rest. So it seems to be necessary to make it shine more. Mercy, how can it be so? The Atma cannot be dull at one moment and blazing at another. It is unchanging and uniform. Devotee, but Chodala says to Sikhi Dhwaja that she simply helped to trim the wick. Mercy, that refers to Nidhi Dhyasana. By Sarvana, knowledge dawns, that is the flame. By Manana, the knowledge is not allowed to vanish. Just as the flame is protected by a windscreen, so the other thoughts are not allowed to overwhelm the right knowledge. By Nidhi Dhyasana, the flame is kept up to burn bright by trimming the wick. Whenever other thoughts arise, the mind is turned inward to the light of true knowledge. When this becomes natural, it is samadhi. The enquiry, who am I, is the sarvana. The ascertainment of the true import of I is the manana. The practical application on each occasion is nidhi dhyasana. Being as I is samadhi. Devotee, although we have heard it so often and so constantly, yet we are unable to put the teaching into practice successfully. It must be due to weakness of mind. Is it possible that one's age is a bar? Maharshi, the mind is commonly said to be strong if it can think furiously, but here the mind is strong if it is free from thoughts. The yogis say that realization can be had only before the age of 30, but not the jnanis, for jnana does not cease to exist with age. It is true that in the Yoga Vasishtha says to Rama in the Vairagya Parkarna, you have this dispassion in your youth. It is admirable, but he did not say that jnana cannot be had in old age. There is nothing to prevent it in old age. The sadhak must remain as the self. If he cannot do so, he must ascertain the true meaning of the I and constantly revert to it whenever other thoughts arise. That is the practice. Some say that one must know the tat because the idea of the world constantly arises to deflect the mind. If the reality behind it is first ascertained, it will be found to be Brahma. The Tvam is understood later, it is the Jiva. Finally, there will be Jiva Brahmakya, union of the two. But why all this? Can the world exist apart from the self? The I is always Brahma. Its identity need not be established by logic and practice. It is enough that one realizes the self. It is always the Brahma. According to the other school, Nidhi Dhyasana will be the thought Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahma. That is diversion of thought to Brahma. No diversion should be allowed. Know the self and there is an end of it. No long process is necessary to know the self. Is it to be pointed out by another? Does not everyone know that he exists, even in utter darkness when he cannot see his hand? He answers a call and says, I am here. Devotee, but that I is the ego or the I thought, and it is not the absolute self that answers the call or is otherwise aware of oneself. Mercy, even the ego can become aware of itself in the absence of light, sight, etc. Much more so should be the pure light of the self. I am saying that the self is self evident. One need not discuss the tattvas to find the self. Some say there are 24 tattvas, others more, and so on. Should we know the tattvas before we admit the existence of the self? The Shastras dilate upon them in order to point out that the self is untouched by them. But for the seeker, he can straightway admit the self and try to be that without having recourse to the study of the tattvas. Devotee Gandhiji adhered to Satya, truth, so long and won realization of the self. Maharshi, what is Satya except the self? Satya is that which is made up of Sat. Again, Sat is nothing but the self. So Gandhiji's Satya is only the self. Each one knows the self but is yet ignorant. The person is unable to realize only after hearing the Mahavakya, hence the Upanishadic text is the eternal truth to which everyone who has realized owes his experience. After hearing the self to be the Brahma, the person finds the true import of the self and reverts to it whenever he is diverted from it. Here is the whole process of realization. So, this video is completed. Please like, comment and share the video and subscribe the channel. Next video number 50 will start with talk number 648. Thanks a lot. Namaskar my dear friends.